The phone call ended with a soft click that echoed through the emptiness of the penthouse like a gunshot. James Thatcher sat alone in his Boston high-rise, the city lights twinkling 40 stories below like fallen stars. His hand still gripped the phone, knuckles white, as if holding on could somehow bring his daughter back across the 3,000 miles that separated them. "Daddy, guess what?" Sophie's voice still rang in his ears, bright and excited. "Mark is taking us skiing tomorrow. He's so fun." Mark, the man who lived with his ex-wife, the man who saw his daughter every morning at breakfast, the man who got to tuck Sophie in at night, who kissed her scraped knees, who heard about her day at school, the man who was becoming her father while James became a stranger. "That sounds great, princess," he'd managed to say, his throat tight. "Daddy misses you." "I miss you too, Daddy." A pause, then the words that shattered him. "But Mommy says I can't come for New Year's. Mark's family's visiting." He tried to keep his voice steady. "That's okay, sweetheart. We'll figure something out." Another pause, longer this time. Then Sophie said what would haunt him for weeks. "It's okay, Daddy. You're probably busy with work anyway." 5 years old, and already she'd learned not to expect him. James stood now, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled beneath him. Millions of lights, millions of lives, millions of families together on Christmas Eve. And here he was, the billionaire CEO who could buy anything except what mattered most. The apartment was silent. No Christmas tree, no decorations, no stockings hung by a fireplace he never used. Just expensive furniture and vast emptiness. 2 years. 2 years since Rebecca had walked out, taking Sophie with her to California. 2 years since she'd looked at him with eyes full of disappointment and said, "You chose your company over your family, James. Don't pretend you didn't." He'd wanted to argue, to say that wasn't true, but the words died in his throat because maybe it was true. Maybe he had chosen board meetings over bedtime stories, business trips over ballet recitals, profit margins over princess tea parties, and now he was paying the price. James grabbed his coat. He couldn't stay here tonight. The walls felt like they were closing in, the silence suffocating. He needed to be somewhere with people, with noise, with life. 20 minutes later, he pushed open the door to Pete's Diner. The place was nearly empty. Christmas Eve. Most people were home with family, gathered around tables laden with food and love and laughter. Pete's Diner wasn't fancy. Red vinyl booths, checkered tablecloths, the smell of coffee and French fries. The kind of place where nobody knew he was James Thatcher, CEO of Thatcher Technologies. Here, he was just another guy trying to survive the holidays. He slid into a corner booth by the window, ordered a steak he wouldn't taste, and stared out at the falling snow. That's when the door opened. A woman stepped inside, pulling a small girl by the hand. Both wore coats too thin for December in Boston. The woman looked about 29, her face tired but still pretty, brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. The little girl was tiny, maybe 5 years old, with blonde hair and light blue eyes that looked at everything with wonder. James watched without meaning to as they approached the counter. The woman opened her purse and began pulling out coins. One by one, she placed them on the counter, her lips moving as she counted silently. The little girl stood on tiptoes, trying to see the menu board on the wall. "Mommy," the child's voice came out soft, hopeful. "Can we get the spaghetti?" The woman didn't answer right away. She kept counting, gathering a few more coins from the bottom of her purse. James saw her close her eyes for just a moment, doing mental math. When she opened them, she forced a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Only if we have enough, sweetie." James's chest tightened. He looked down at his own plate, at the $20 steak he'd barely touched, at the wine he'd ordered but hadn't opened, at everything he had that meant nothing. And he looked at that mother, counting coins to feed her daughter on Christmas Eve. The little girl turned her head and, for one moment, their eyes met. Blonde hair, light blue eyes, about 5 years old. She looked exactly like Sophie. James couldn't breathe. It was like seeing his daughter's ghost, seeing the childhood he was missing, seeing everything he'd lost staring back at him through the eyes of a stranger's child. The girl smiled at him, a small, shy smile that reminded him so much of Sophie that his throat closed up. He couldn't just sit there. He couldn't. James wiped his mouth with his napkin, took a deep breath, and stood up. He walked slowly to the counter, not wanting to startle them. The woman was still counting coins, her back to him. The little girl noticed him first, turning to look up with those enormous eyes. "Excuse me," James said softly, in the gentlest tone he could manage. The mother spun around quickly, surprised. She instinctively pulled her daughter closer, her body language protective. James raised his hand slightly, showing he meant no harm. "I'm sorry to intrude, but would you two like to join me for dinner?" The woman blinked several times, looking at him as if she wasn't sure she'd heard correctly. What? I'm having dinner alone over there." He pointed discreetly to his booth. "And it's Christmas Eve. No one should have dinner alone on Christmas, right?" She opened her mouth to answer, but no sound came out. Her eyes went from the coins in her hand to his face, then back again, as if trying to understand if this was real. "I can't accept," she shook her head, a blush of embarrassment rising in her cheeks. "Thank you, but, Mommy, please." The little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve, her eyes sparkling. "He looks kind." James smiled. It wasn't a smile of pity, it was genuine. He crouched down to the girl's height. "What's your name?" "Maya," she answered excitedly. "And this is my mom, Avery." Avery. The name suited that tired but beautiful face. "Nice to meet you, Maya and Avery. I'm James." He stood up, keeping his voice calm. "Look, I know it seems strange, but I ordered too much food, and honestly, it would be nice to have company. You'd be doing me a favor." Avery hesitated. James saw the conflict playing across her face. Pride versus necessity. Distrust versus exhaustion. She looked at her daughter, then at the coins, then back at him. "Please, Mommy," Maya whispered, squeezing her hand. Avery closed her eyes for an instant. When she opened them, gratitude and shame were mixed together. "Okay, but thank you, truly." James nodded as if it were no big deal and motioned for them to follow. As they walked back to the booth, as he pulled out chairs and helped Maya climb up, as he ordered spaghetti and orange juice and watched Maya's face light up with joy, James felt warmth spread through him for the first time in months. This little girl wasn't his daughter. This woman wasn't his wife. But sitting here with them, watching Maya show him her drawings, listening to Avery slowly open up about her job at the department store, hearing the sound of a child's laughter again. For the first time since Rebecca left, James Thatcher didn't feel like he was drowning. Maya attacked her spaghetti with the enthusiasm only a hungry 5-year-old could muster. She talked between bites, her words tumbling over each other in her excitement to share everything at once. "And then Mrs. Henderson said my drawing of Santa was the best one. Do you want to see it?" She was already pulling a crumpled paper from her little backpack before James could answer. The drawing was colorful and crooked and made with such care that his throat tightened. Santa's face was lopsided, his beard a wild scribble of white crayon, but there was something precious about it. "It's beautiful, Maya," James said, and meant it. "You're a real artist." "Thank you," she beamed. Then with the brutal honesty of children, she added, "Maybe Santa won't come this year because he has so many kids to visit. But that's okay. Mommy tries really hard." The words hung in the air. James glanced at Avery. She had stopped eating, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth, her face a mixture of love and pain as she looked at her daughter. "Every job is special when you do it to take care of someone you love," James said quietly, his eyes on Avery. She was silent for a moment. Then she nodded slowly, as if no one had ever said that to her before. The conversation flowed after that. Maya dominated with her stories about school, about her teacher, about the friend who shared crayons with her. But it was Avery that James found himself watching. The way she smiled when Maya laughed. The way she cut her daughter's spaghetti into smaller pieces without being asked. The way she looked at Maya like she was the entire world. "What about you?" "Avery," James asked when Maya paused to drink her juice. "What do you do?" "I work at Macy's," she said, wiping her mouth. "The downtown store. Nothing special. Just sales." "How long have you been there?" "2 years." She glanced at Maya. "I used to be a nurse, but I had to leave that job when Maya got sick one winter. She needed someone home, and the hospital couldn't be flexible with the schedule." "That must have been hard." Avery's smile was sad. "Everything's hard when you're doing it alone." Maya's father? Gone. The word was flat, final. He left before she was even born. Said he wasn't ready to be a father. She looked down at her plate. "I haven't seen him since." Maya had stopped eating now, sensing the shift in her mother's mood. She reached over and patted Avery's hand. "It's okay, Mommy. We have each other." Avery's eyes glistened. She blinked rapidly, laughing. "Yes, baby, we do." James felt his defenses crumbling. This woman who had so little, who counted coins to buy dinner, who worked a job beneath her education just to keep a roof over their heads. She had what he'd lost. She was there, present, every day, for her daughter. "I have a daughter too," James found himself saying. "Sophie, she's 5, same age as Maya." Maya's eyes widened. "Really? Does she like to draw?" "She does." James pulled out his phone and showed her a picture. Sophie smiling at the camera, holding a stuffed unicorn. "She's pretty," Maya announced. "Can I meet her?" "She lives far away," James said carefully, "in California, with her mother." "Oh." Maya's face fell, then brightened again with childlike optimism. "Maybe she can visit." "Maybe," James said, though his heart was heavy. Avery was watching him with new understanding in her eyes. "You miss her?" "Every day." He put the phone away. "Every single day." They talked for another hour, about small things and big things, about Maya's dreams of having a puppy someday, about Avery's memories of her own mother, who had passed away when Maya was a baby, about James's work, though he was careful not to mention exactly how successful his company was. When they finally stood to leave, James paid the bill over Avery's protests. "Let me at least pay for our part," she insisted, pulling out her small wallet. "It's already taken care of," James said easily. "Please, it was my pleasure." Avery flushed, speechless. As they walked toward the door, Maya suddenly ran back and threw her arms around James's legs in a tight hug. "Thank you, Mr. James," she said, her voice muffled against his coat. James bent down and gently ruffled her blonde hair, his vision blurring. "You're welcome, Maya. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas." She looked up at him with those eyes so like Sophie's. "Will we see you again?" James glanced at Avery. She looked uncertain but hopeful. "I'd like that," he said. Avery quickly squeezed his hand. "Thank you. From the bottom of my heart. You have no idea what this meant." "The pleasure was mine," he said. "It really was." He stood in the doorway, watching them disappear into the snowy night. Maya skipped ahead, holding her mother's hand, her little backpack bouncing. Avery looked back once before turning the corner. He waved, she waved back. When they were gone, James returned to his booth. He sat down and looked at the empty seats they'd occupied, at Maya's crumpled napkin, at the few crayons she'd left behind. A quiet certainty settled over him. This hadn't just been dinner with strangers. It had been the beginning of something that would change everything. James woke early, but not because he'd slept well. He'd spent the night waking up repeatedly, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Maya and Avery, thinking about Sophie, thinking about how life had a way of showing you exactly what you were missing. He made coffee and sat at his empty kitchen table. He pulled out his wallet and looked at Sophie's picture. Her gap-toothed smile, her hair falling over her eyes. She looked so happy in that photo. He picked up his phone and dialed. "Hello." Rebecca's voice was cold. It always was these days. "Hi, Rebecca. It's me. I wanted to talk to Sophie." Silence on the other end. That heavy, judgmental silence he'd come to know too well. "She's getting ready. We're leaving for a trip today." "I know, but I just wanted to wish her a Merry Christmas." Another silence. "Fine. Hold on." He heard her voice fading, calling Sophie. Heard little footsteps running. A door opening. "Hi, Daddy." Sophie's voice burst into his ear. Excited, full of pure joy. James's eyes stung instantly. "Hi, Princess. Merry Christmas. Daddy misses you very much." "I miss you too, Daddy." Her sincerity hurt because it was true. "Did you see the snow in Boston?" "I did. It's very pretty." "It snowed here too. Mark built a snowman with me yesterday. It was so fun." "Mark. Always Mark." "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart." "Daddy." Her voice grew quieter. "Are you by yourself?" The question caught him off guard. "Why do you ask that, Princess?" Because you sound sad. Even when you're smiling, you sound sad." 5 years old, and she could hear right through him. "Daddy's okay," he lied gently. "I just miss you." "I miss you too, a lot." A pause. "I wish you lived closer." "Me too, baby. Me too." Maybe you could come visit us. We have room." James closed his eyes. The idea of staying in Rebecca's house, watching Mark be the father he couldn't be, was unbearable. "We'll figure something out, Princess. I promise." "Okay. I love you, Daddy." "I love you too. So much." "Bye." The call ended. No chance to say goodbye to Rebecca. Just the silence of disconnection. James sat there for a long moment, the phone still at his ear. Then he slowly lowered it and placed it on the table. He looked again at Sophie's picture. Then he thought about another little girl, Maya, bouncing excitedly in the diner. Maya proudly showing her drawings. Maya hugging his leg and calling him Mr. James. Two girls, same age, completely different realities. One he barely got to see, the other had appeared out of nowhere in his life on Christmas Eve. James stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city continued. Families were leaving their homes, taking their children to play in the snow, carrying gifts, laughing. Life went on as if nothing had changed, but for him, everything felt different. That dinner at Pete's, that mother counting coins, that little girl with sparkling eyes, they'd awakened a part of him that had been dormant for too long. He didn't know what it was yet. But he knew he couldn't stop thinking about them, and he knew he didn't want to stop. James grabbed his coat. He had to find them again. Pete's diner looked different in daylight, less melancholy somehow. James pushed through the door, the bell chiming overhead. Pete himself stood behind the counter, a large man with a gray beard and kind eyes. "Help you, son?" "I'm looking for someone, a woman who was here last night." "Avery?" "She had a little girl with her." Pete's face softened. "Avery Collins." "Yeah, I know her. She comes in sometimes when she can afford it. Good woman. Tough situation. Do you know where she works?" "Macy's, downtown. Been there about 2 years, I think." Pete leaned forward. "You want to help her?" I want to see her again." Pete studied him for a moment, then nodded. "She works the day shift most days. Could probably find her there." "Thank you." "Hey," Pete called after him as James headed for the door. "Whatever you're planning, she's good people. She deserves good things." "I know," James said quietly. "I know she does." Macy's was chaos the day after Christmas. The doors had barely opened for the Boxing Day sales. And already the store was flooded with people returning gifts, hunting bargains, pushing through crowds with that particular aggression that only retail sales could inspire. James moved through the throng, searching. He found her on the third floor, in the women's clothing section. Avery stood behind a counter, her face tired, dealing with an angry customer who was waving a receipt and complaining about a return policy. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Avery was saying, her voice calm despite the woman's raised tone. "But without the original tags, I can't." "This is ridiculous. I demand to speak to your manager." "Of course, let me—" "Collins." A man in a cheap suit and a manager's badge strode over. Mr. Crawford, his name tag read. He looked like a man who enjoyed having power over people. "Is there a problem here, Collins?" "This customer would like to—" "Where's your kid today, Collins?" Crawford interrupted. "Don't tell me she's in the back room again." Avery's face flushed red. "Sir, because I've told you repeatedly, this is not a daycare. This is a workplace." James saw Avery's shoulders stiffen, saw her swallow her pride, saw her about to apologize for circumstances beyond her control. He moved without thinking. "Excuse me." James approached the counter, his voice calm but authoritative, the voice he used in boardrooms. "I need assistance with a purchase." Crawford turned, his expression shifting instantly when he saw James's expensive coat, his polished shoes, the Rolex on his wrist. "Of course, sir. How can we help you?" "I need Ms. Collins specifically." James looked at Avery, whose eyes had widened in recognition. "She helped me yesterday, and I was very pleased with her service." Crawford's demeanor changed completely. Of course, of course. Collins, help this gentleman with whatever he needs." For the next 20 minutes, James bought things he didn't need. A cashmere scarf, leather gloves, a designer handbag he'd have delivered to his mother. He kept Avery busy, kept her away from Crawford's glare, kept her earning commission. When they were done, when James had spent nearly $5,000 on things he barely looked at, Avery followed him away from the counter. "Mr. Thatcher," she said quietly, "what are you doing here?" "James," he corrected. "Just James." He smiled. "I wanted to see you again. Is that okay?" She looked at him for a long moment, then slowly she smiled back. "Yes, that's okay. Can I see you again? Outside of work?" Avery hesitated, then nodded. "I'd like that." "Good." James pulled out his phone. "Give me your number." She did, her hands slightly shaking as she typed it into his phone. As James left Macy's, packages in hand that he'd donate to charity later, he felt lighter than he had in months. He'd found them again, and this time, he wasn't going to let them slip away. The pattern fell into place naturally. James would appear at the end of Avery's shift, waiting outside Macy's with 2 cups of hot chocolate, one for Avery, one for Maya, who was always tucked away in the break room with her coloring books and crayons. They'd walk together through Boston Common, watching the Christmas lights that still hung from the trees. Maya would skip ahead, pointing at decorations, making up stories about the families they passed. "That man is a secret spy," she'd whisper dramatically. "And that lady, she's actually a princess in disguise." James and Avery would walk behind her, talking, really talking, about everything and nothing. Avery told him about her life before Maya, about nursing school, about the boyfriend who'd promised forever and delivered nothing, about the day she'd realized she was pregnant and alone. "I thought about giving her up," Avery admitted one cold evening as they sat on a bench in the park. Maya was playing in the snow nearby, building a lopsided snowman. "For about 5 minutes, I considered adoption, because what could I give her? I had nothing. But you kept her." "I kept her," Avery smiled, watching her daughter. "And she's the best thing that ever happened to me, even on the hard days, especially on the hard days. You're an incredible mother." "I don't feel incredible. Most days I feel like I'm barely holding it together." "That's what makes you incredible," James said quietly. You keep going anyway. Avery looked at him then, really looked at him. What about you? Tell me about Sophie. Really tell me. So James did. He told her about the divorce, about the custody arrangement that left him on the outside looking in, about the guilt that ate at him every day. I see her maybe 4 times a year, he said, his voice rough. Thanksgiving if I'm lucky, Christmas, a week in the summer, her birthday, and every time she's more distant, every time she talks more about Mark and less about me. She still loves you, does she? Or does she love the idea of a father? And Mark is there, every day, being that father while I'm here sending birthday presents and calling once a week. You could move to California. I thought about it, but my company is here. My whole life is here. He laughed bitterly. Not that I have much of a life. You have us now, Maya's voice piped up. Both adults turned. Maya had abandoned her snowman and was standing right beside them, her blue eyes serious. We're your friends now, right, Mr. James? James's throat tightened. Yes, Maya, you are. Good. She climbed up onto the bench between them and snuggled against his side. Because you look like you need friends. Avery laughed, but her eyes were wet. Maya, honey, don't. It's okay, James said. He put his arm around the little girl, and she fit perfectly against his side, just like Sophie used to. They sat there in the cold, the three of them, watching snow fall in the lamplight. And for the first time in 2 years, James Thatcher felt like he might be exactly where he was supposed to be. The gift started small. A new pair of shoes for Maya when James noticed her old ones were too tight. A warmer coat from a department store that wasn't Macy's, so Avery wouldn't feel watched by Crawford. Avery protested every time. James, you can't keep. Let me, he'd say. Please, let me do this. And eventually, she stopped fighting. Not because she didn't value her independence, but because she saw that giving brought James joy, that being part of their lives healed a broken part of him. One evening, after Maya had fallen asleep on the couch in Avery's cramped apartment, her head in Avery's lap, James sat beside them. She's getting heavy, Avery whispered, stroking Maya's hair. Let me. James gently scooped Maya up and carried her to the tiny bedroom. He laid her down carefully, tucking the blanket around her small body. When he turned, Avery was standing in the doorway, watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You're good with her, Avery said softly. I'm just doing what I wish I could do for Sophie. They returned to the living room. Avery made tea, cheap grocery store bags, not the expensive loose leaf James was used to. It tasted better than anything he'd had in months. James, Avery began, then stopped. Started again. Why are you really here? With us? What do you mean? You're a billionaire CEO. You could be anywhere, with anyone, but you're sitting in my rundown apartment drinking bad tea, and I need to know why. James set down his mug. Do you want the easy answer or the truth? The truth. Always the truth. The truth is, he took a breath. When Rebecca left, she took Sophie with her. But she also took my belief that I could be a good father, that I deserved to be a father. James, let me finish. For 2 years, I convinced myself that it was better this way, that Sophie was better off without me, that I was too broken, too absent, too late. He looked at Avery. And then I met you, and Maya. And I watched you, a woman with nothing, give everything. I watched you choose your daughter over your pride, over your comfort, over everything. And I realized, what? That love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. His voice cracked. You showed up for Maya at that diner with $6. I've been absent from Sophie's life with billions in the bank. So who's the better parent? Avery reached across the couch and took his hand. You're here now. That's what matters. But am I? I'm here with you, but I'm failing Sophie. Again. Then don't fail her. Avery squeezed his hand. Fight for her, James. Really fight. Not with money or lawyers. Fight by being present, by showing her that you can change. What if it's too late? It's never too late. Not if the love is real. James looked at this woman, this incredible woman who'd survived abandonment and poverty and single motherhood without losing her capacity for hope. And his carefully constructed walls crumbled. I'm falling in love with you, he said quietly. Avery's breath caught. James, I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But I need you to know. You make me want to be better. For Sophie. For myself. He paused. For you. Her eyes glistened. I'm falling in love with you too. And it terrifies me. Why? Because Dylan said he loved me too. And then he left. And I don't. Her voice broke. I don't think I could survive being left again. James moved closer, cupping her face with both hands. I'm not leaving. I'm not Dylan. I'm not perfect, and I'll probably mess things up. But I will show up every day. I promise you that. How can you promise that? Because for the first time in 2 years, I want to. That's how. He kissed her then, soft at first, then deeper, and Avery kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they broke apart, she was crying and smiling at the same time. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I trust you. Thank you, he whispered back. From the bedroom, Maya's sleepy voice called out, Mommy, can Mr. James stay for breakfast tomorrow? Both adults laughed. Only if your mom says yes, James called back. She says yes, Maya announced. Avery shook her head, still smiling. I guess I say yes. The fever came on suddenly, in the dead of night. James was in a restless sleep when his phone buzzed. A text from Avery. I'm sorry to bother you, but I don't know what else to do. His heart stopped. He called her immediately. Avery, what's wrong? It's Maya. Her voice was shaking. She has a fever, a really high fever, 103 degrees. I don't have a car, and it's too late for the bus, and I can't afford an ambulance, and I'm on my way. Give me your address. James, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm coming. Stay calm. I'll be there in 15 minutes. He made it in 12. Avery opened the door before he could knock. Her face was pale with fear. She's in here. Maya lay on a small bed in a tiny room, her face flushed, her blonde hair damp with sweat. She was crying softly, saying her head hurt, saying she was cold even though she was burning up. James knelt beside the bed. Hey, princess, Mr. James is here. We're going to get you feeling better, okay? It hurts, Maya whimpered. I know, sweetie. I know. He scooped her up carefully, blanket and all. Let's go. The urgent care clinic was 20 minutes away. James drove with one hand, the other reaching back to hold Avery's hand as she sat in the back seat with Maya. She's going to be okay, he kept saying. She's going to be okay. At the clinic, they were seen immediately. The doctor examined Maya, ran tests, and finally smiled. It's just a virus, common this time of year. The fever is high, but nothing dangerous. I'll prescribe something stronger, and she should be fine in a few days. Avery nearly collapsed with relief. When they got back to the apartment, Maya was already drowsy from the medicine. James carried her upstairs and laid her gently in her bed. She was asleep before he pulled the blanket over her. Avery stood in the doorway watching. Silent tears streamed down her face. James walked over to her. She's okay, he said softly. You came, Avery whispered. At 2 a.m, you just came. Of course I came. Why? She looked up at him, searching his face. Why do you care so much about us? James thought about lying, about saying something easy and safe. But standing there in that tiny apartment, with this woman who'd carved out a life from nothing, and with that little girl who'd reminded him what it meant to be needed. "Because you make me feel alive again," he said simply. "Because when I'm with you and Maya, I remember who I wanted to be before I got lost in board meetings and quarterly reports. You remind me what matters." Avery stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. She buried her face in his chest and let herself cry, really cry for the first time in front of him. "Thank you," she said, her voice muffled. "Thank you for staying. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing us." James held her tight, his chin resting on top of her head. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. "I'm right here." And in that moment, standing in a cramped apartment in a building that was falling apart, James Thatcher felt richer than he'd ever felt in his penthouse. Because this was real. This was what mattered. This was home. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. James was in a board meeting when his phone buzzed. Rebecca. He stepped out to answer. "Hello? We need to talk." Her voice was ice. "About what?" "About the pictures, James. The pictures all over social media of you playing happy family with some woman and her child." James's stomach dropped. He'd forgotten that in the age of smartphones, a billionaire CEO couldn't walk through Boston Common with a woman and child without being photographed. "Rebecca, is this why you've been so distant with Sophie? You've been too busy with your new family." "That's not. Do you have any idea what this is doing to her?" "She saw the pictures, James. Someone at school showed her. She came home crying, asking if you have a new daughter now, asking if you don't want her anymore." The words hit him like bullets. "I would never—" "But you are," Rebecca was yelling now. "You're playing daddy to some stranger's kid while your own daughter wonders why you don't call as much. Why you didn't fight to see her at Christmas. Why you didn't—" "I'm trying to be better by replacing her." "I'm not replacing anyone." "Then prove it. Because right now, James, it looks like you've moved on. And if that's the case, if you're building a new family while abandoning your real daughter, then I'm taking you back to court. Full custody, no visits. You'll be nothing to her." "Rebecca, please." The line went dead. James stood in the hallway, his heart pounding, the world spinning. He'd been so focused on Avery and Maya that he'd let his calls to Sophie slip. Not intentionally, but still. He pulled up his phone, scrolled through his recent calls. The last time he'd talked to Sophie, 12 days ago. Before that, 2 weeks. 6 weeks ago, he'd called her every other day. Rebecca was right. That evening, James sat in his penthouse alone. He'd canceled dinner with Avery and Maya, told them he had work. He couldn't face them, couldn't face the truth of what he'd done. His phone rang. Avery. He let it go to voicemail. She called again. Again. Voicemail. On the third try, he answered. "James, what's wrong? Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "You're not fine. I can hear it in your voice." "Avery, I need some space tonight." Silence, then. "Okay, but James, whatever it is, we can figure it out together." "Can we?" he asked more harshly than he intended. "Because right now it feels like I'm losing everything, trying to have everything." "What does that mean?" "It means—" He took a shaky breath. "It means maybe this was a mistake." "What was a mistake?" Her voice was small now, scared. "Us. This. I can't lose Sophie. Avery. I would never ask you to. But I am losing her, because I've been so focused on you and Maya that I forgot the daughter I already have. James, I need time to think, to figure this out." "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, take your time." She hung up. James sat in the dark, feeling like he was drowning. James spent 3 days in hell, not calling Avery, not seeing Maya, just sitting in his empty penthouse, staring at photos of Sophie, trying to figure out how to fix what he'd broken. On the third day, his lawyer called with news. Rebecca filed for modification of custody, Patricia said bluntly. She's asking for full legal and physical custody. No visitation rights for you. She can't do that. She can. And James, between the missed calls and the very public relationship, she has a case. What do I do? You fight. You show the court you're committed to being Sophie's father. You prove you have a stable home environment. After the call ended, James sat with his head in his hands. He couldn't lose Sophie. He wouldn't. But cutting Avery and Maya out of his life felt like cutting out his own heart. That evening, someone knocked on his door. He opened it to find Avery standing there, a letter in her hand. "Hi," she said quietly. "Avery, let me talk first. Please." He stepped aside. She came in but didn't sit down. "I know what's happening," she said. "I know Rebecca filed for custody. James, I see what's happening here. Avery, you're choosing between Sophie and us. And James," she held out the letter. "You should choose Sophie." "What?" "She's your daughter. She needs you. She needed you before I came along, and she'll need you after." "After?" Avery's eyes filled with tears. "I'm leaving Boston. I got offered a job at a hospital in Burlington, Vermont. Full-time nursing, good benefits, enough to give Maya a real life." "No." James's voice was hoarse. "No, don't do this. I have to. I can't be the reason you lose your daughter. I won't be that person." She set the letter on his counter. "This is goodbye, James. Thank you for everything, for seeing us, for making us feel like we mattered. But Sophie matters more. You both matter, but she matters first." Avery's smile was sad. "Read the letter when you're ready. And James, fight for Sophie. Be the father she needs." She turned to leave. "Avery, wait." "Goodbye, James." She walked out. The door closed, and James stood alone in his penthouse, the letter on the counter, his world falling apart. James read Avery's letter 17 times over 7 days. Each time he cried. On the 8th day, his phone rang. Sophie. "Hi, Daddy." "Hi, Princess." His voice was raw. "Mommy says you're sad. Are you sad, Daddy?" "A little bit, yeah." "Is it because of the lady, Avery?" So Rebecca had told her the name. "Yes, baby, it's complicated." "Do you love her?" James closed his eyes. "Yes." "Then why are you sad? When you love someone, you should be happy." "It's not that simple, Princess." "Why not?" "How do you explain adult complications to a 5-year-old? Because sometimes loving one person means hurting another person, and I don't want to hurt anyone." "Daddy, do you remember what you told me? When Grammy got sick and we were sad?" "What did I tell you?" "You said love doesn't run out. You said you can love Grammy and love me and love Mommy all at the same time, and nobody gets less love. Love just gets bigger." James felt his breath catch. "Do you still believe that, Daddy?" Yes, I do." "Then why can't you love me and Avery? Why can't love just get bigger?" Out of the mouths of babes. "Sophie, you're the smartest person I know." "I know," she said matter-of-factly. "Daddy, can I meet her? Avery and her daughter. I want to meet them." "Really? Really? Because if you love them, I want to love them too. That's what families do." James sat up straighter. "What did you say?" "Families love the people their people love. That's what makes families big and happy instead of small and sad." "Sophie," his voice broke. "When did you get so wise? I'm 5.5 now. I'm very mature." James laughed through his tears. "Yes, you are. So can I meet them?" "I'll talk to your mom, okay? I promise." "Okay, I love you, Daddy. I love you more than anything in this world, Princess." "I know." She hung up. James sat there for a long moment. Then he called Rebecca. "What do you want, James?" "I want to come to California to talk. in person, about Sophie, about everything. There's nothing. Rebecca, I was a terrible husband. I admit that. I put work first. I missed our marriage. I missed our daughter. But I'm asking for a chance to fix it. Not us, not our marriage, but my relationship with Sophie. Silence. Please, James said quietly. For Sophie. More silence. Then, fine. Tomorrow. Come to the house. The house Rebecca shared with Mark was beautiful, suburban, perfect lawn, white picket fence. Everything James's penthouse wasn't. Rebecca met him at the door. Mark took Sophie to the park. We have an hour. They sat in the living room. Awkward, tense. Say what you came to say, Rebecca started. Sophie called me. She asked to meet Avery and Maya. Rebecca's face darkened. Absolutely not. Hear me out, please. James leaned forward. Our daughter is wiser than both of us. She told me that love doesn't run out, that families love the people their people love. And Rebecca, she's right. So you want to bring your new family into her life? I want Sophie to see that her father is capable of being present, that I can show up, that I can love. And yes, I love Avery. I love Maya. But that doesn't mean I love Sophie less. How do I know that? Because I'm here, right now, fighting for her. I flew across the country to have this conversation. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to be in her life. Really in her life. Rebecca studied him for a long time. If I agree to this, if I let Sophie meet them, I have conditions. Name them. 1. You start calling Sophie every other day. No excuses. No matter how busy you are. Done. 2. You fly out here once a month. Not just for holidays. Once a month, you come see her. In person. Done. 3. If this relationship with Avery ends, you don't disappear on Sophie again. You stay present. I promise. On my life, I promise. Rebecca looked at him. Really looked. Then slowly she nodded. 2 weeks. Sophie can visit you in Boston for 2 weeks. But James, if this hurts her, if your girlfriend or her daughter makes Sophie feel replaced, I will end you. Understood. They shook hands. As James left, Rebecca called after him. James? Yeah? I hope she's good to you, whoever she is. I hope she makes you happy. It was the kindest thing Rebecca had said to him in 3 years. The drive from Boston to Burlington took 3.5 hours. James made it in 3. He found the address his investigator had given him. A small house on the outskirts of town, smoke from the chimney, snow everywhere. He sat in the car, nervous. What if she refused to see him? What if... The front door opened. Maya burst out, bundled in her coat, the lighted headband still on her head. She was building a snowman in the yard. James got out of the car. Maya looked up, froze. Then her face split into the biggest smile. Mr. James! She ran through the snow, arms wide, and threw herself at him. James caught her, lifting her up, holding her tight. Hi, Maya. I missed you, she pulled back. Are you here to take us home? If your mom says yes. Mommy, Maya shouted. Mommy, Mr. James is here. The door opened. Avery stood there, hand over her mouth, eyes wide. Hi, James said. Can we talk? She nodded, unable to speak. They sat on the porch steps while Maya played. You found me, Avery said. I'll always find you. James! I talked to Rebecca. I went to California. I had a real conversation. And Avery, Sophie wants to meet you. She asked to. What? She told me that families love the people their people love. That love doesn't run out. It just gets bigger. And she's right. He took Avery's hands. Come back to Boston, just for 2 weeks. Let Sophie meet you and Maya. Let her see what I see. What if she doesn't like us? She will. How could she not? He squeezed her hands. I was wrong to push you away. Wrong to think I had to choose. Sophie doesn't need me to pretend you don't exist. She needs to see me happy, really happy, and I'm only happy with you. James, please give us a chance, all of us. Avery looked at Maya playing in the snow, then back at James. Okay, she whispered. For 2 weeks. Thank you. He pulled her close and they sat there, holding each other, while snow fell around them. Sophie arrived on a Friday afternoon. Rebecca drove her to the airport herself, walked her to the gate, and before Sophie boarded, Rebecca knelt down. Baby, if this is too much, if you're uncomfortable, you call me. Anytime, day or night, and I'll come get you. I'll be okay, Mommy. I know. You're brave. Rebecca hugged her tight. I love you. I love you too. James picked Sophie up at Logan Airport. She ran to him, and he swept her up, holding her like he'd never let go. I missed you so much, Princess. I missed you too, Daddy. In the car on the drive to Boston Common where they'd agreed to meet Avery and Maya, Sophie was nervous. Daddy, what if Maya doesn't like me? She'll love you. What if I don't like her? Then we'll figure it out. But Sophie, I think you will. She's a lot like you. Really? Really? James held Sophie's hand as they walked through the park. Avery and Maya were already there, sitting on a bench near the fountain. As they approached, both little girls saw each other. Sophie stopped walking. Maya stopped swinging her legs. They stared. 2 5-year-olds, both blonde, both blue-eyed. Like mirrors. James held his breath. Then Maya slid off the bench and took a tentative step forward. Hi, she said shyly. I'm Maya. Sophie looked up at James. He nodded encouragingly. She looked back at Maya. Hi, I'm Sophie. You're Mr. James's daughter. Yes, and you're Avery's daughter. Yes. They stood there studying each other. Then Maya said, Do you like to draw? Sophie's face lit up. I love to draw. Me too. Do you want to see my sketchbook? Yes. Just like that, Maya grabbed Sophie's hand and pulled her toward the bench where her backpack was. James and Avery stood frozen, watching. Did that just... Avery started. I think it did, James finished. The girls sat side by side on the bench, heads bent together over Maya's sketchbook, already chattering like they'd known each other forever. Sophie looked up at Maya and said, Your hair is the same color as mine. Maya touched Sophie's hair gently. We match. Like sisters, Sophie said quietly. Like sisters, Maya agreed. Both adults had tears streaming down their faces. The 2 weeks flew by. Sophie and Maya were inseparable. They drew together, played together, even started finishing each other's sentences. On the last day before Sophie had to fly back to California, the four of them went to Pete's diner, the same place it had all started. Pete smiled when he saw them. Well, look at this, my favorite family. They sat in the same booth, ordered spaghetti and hot chocolate. Sophie and Maya sat on one side giggling, James and Avery on the other, holding hands under the table. Daddy, Sophie said suddenly, I don't want to leave tomorrow. I know, Princess, but you have school, and your mom misses you. Can Maya visit me in California? James and Avery exchanged glances. Maybe this summer, Avery said gently. Promise? Promise. Sophie seemed satisfied with that. She went back to eating her spaghetti tomato sauce all over her face. After dinner, as they walked to James's car, Sophie grabbed his hand. Daddy, I like them. Avery and Maya. I like them a lot. Yeah? Yeah, they make you smile. I like it when you smile. James knelt down to her level. Sophie, I need to ask you an important question, and I need you to be really honest with me, okay? Okay. If Avery and Maya stayed in Boston, if they were part of our family, would that be okay with you? Sophie thought about it seriously. Would I still be your daughter? Always, forever. Nothing will ever change that. And would Maya be like my sister? Something like that. Sophie looked over at Maya, who was showing Avery a rock she'd found, then back at James. Okay, she said simply. That sounds nice. James hugged her tight, his heart full. Boston Common was covered in fresh snow, the lights twinkling like fallen stars. James stood at the base of the big Christmas tree with a box of ornaments. Dad, we got the gold ones! Sophie came running, her blonde hair flying behind her. I got the silver, Maya shouted, running from the opposite direction. Strangers often asked if they were twins now. The two girls looked so alike, and they'd taken to dressing similarly, copying each other's mannerisms. Perfect, James said, smiling. Now we just need the star, Avery finished, walking up. She wore a simple gold band on her left hand. They'd gotten married 3 months ago. Small ceremony, Sophie and Maya as flower girls. Rebecca had even attended, bringing Mark, extending an olive branch that James had gratefully accepted. Together, the four of them decorated the tree. Sophie and Maya argued playfully about placement. Avery and James watched, arms around each other. When the ornaments were up, James lifted both girls, one on each side. Ready? He asked. Ready, they chorused. 4 hands guided the star to the top. When it was placed, everyone cheered. Later, as they walked back through the snowy park, Sophie grabbed James's hand. Daddy, can I tell you something? Always, princess. I'm glad you met Avery. I'm glad we have Maya. I was scared at first, but now I can't imagine it any other way. James's throat tightened. Me neither, sweetheart. Do you still miss the old days, when it was just you and me? Sometimes, he said honestly, but not in a sad way. More like remembering happy times. Because Sophie, the old days were good, but these days are even better. Because love got bigger? Exactly. She smiled and squeezed his hand. Ahead of them, Maya and Avery were having their own conversation, giggling about something. James looked at his family, blended, imperfect, beautiful, and felt complete. They ended up at Pete's diner for dinner, full circle. Pete beamed when he saw them. There's my favorite family. Booth by the window? Please, James said. They slid into the same booth where it had all started, where a man alone had watched a mother count coins, where everything had changed. Maya looked around, suddenly serious. Mommy, this is where we met Mr. James. It is, baby. And now he's Daddy James, Maya said, satisfied. She'd started calling him that 6 months ago, after James sat her down and asked if that would be okay. This is our home, right? Sophie asked suddenly. Boston? All of us. Yes, James said. This is home. Good. Sophie went back to coloring on her placemat. Because I like it here, with all of us, together. Maya nodded in agreement, not looking up from her own coloring. James and Avery locked eyes across the table. 1 year ago, this had seemed impossible. Now it was their reality. As they were leaving, Pete called James aside. You did good, son, the old man said. I just showed up. That's the whole game, isn't it? Showing up. Pete smiled. That night a year ago, you were one of the most lost people I'd ever seen. And now look at you. James looked at Avery, helping the girls into their coats, at Sophie and Maya holding hands as they walked toward the door. Yeah, James said quietly. Look at me. After the girls were asleep, in bedrooms right next to each other, doors open so they could whisper to each other in the dark, James and Avery stood by the window. Thank you, James said. For what? For seeing me, for staying, for giving me a reason to be better. You gave yourself the reason. I just reminded you it was there. They stood in comfortable silence, watching snow fall over Boston. Avery? I want to tell you about that first night, at Pete's. What about it? When I saw you counting those coins, and Maya looking at the menu, I didn't just feel sorry for you. I saw myself. Not the money part, but the struggle, the fear that you're failing the person who matters most. Avery turned to look at him. And when I invited you to dinner, I wasn't being charitable. I was being selfish because I needed to know that broken people could heal each other, that it wasn't too late for second chances. And, Avery asked softly, is it too late? James pulled her close. No, it's never too late. Not when the love is real. She kissed him then, soft and sweet. From down the hall, they heard giggling. Then Sophie's voice. Maya, shh, they'll hear us. I'm being quiet, Maya whisper shouted back. More giggling. James and Avery smiled against each other's lips. Should we check on them? Avery asked. Probably. But neither of them moved. Because this, standing here together, listening to their daughters laugh, being exactly where they were supposed to be, this was perfect. The penthouse that had once been filled with silence was now alive with noise and toys and laughter and love. And James Thatcher, the man who'd spent 2 years believing he'd lost everything, had found something better than what he'd lost. He'd found a second chance. He'd found home. He'd found family. Not the family he'd planned, but the family he needed. The family that chose each other.